Hello, this is Gradye Parsons, Stated Clerk of the Presbyterian Church USA, and this is a continuing discussion in the series, Where Are We Going? As a church, as a denomination, as part of God's movement in the world. Today I want to talk to you about another major influence about how the church is evolving in the future, and that is the influence of the church in the global South. Unbeknownst to us, sometime during 1981, when we were all maybe sleeping in our beds or maybe sitting even in Sunday school, the majority of Christians on this planet shifted from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere, and that change has been continuing ever since. The predictions for the future, if you mind me checking my research here, show that the U.S. will continue to be the majority Christian country, looking at 2050, but whose second and third changes a great deal. By 2050, China will be the second biggest Christian country, and some think that may happen even before them. In addition, there's major growth in the church in Central and South America, and especially on the continent of Africa. And what this means for us is that the voices that contribute to how we understand what it means to be communions of faith, what it means to be a Christian, what it means to be church, are going to expand beyond those that have traditionally been most from North America and Western Europe. A different perspective will be brought to us. And even though with globalization, you can find a McDonald's in Nairobi just as easy as you can find it in your town, the truth is the context for the global South for Christendom is and will continue to be very different. It won't be necessarily from countries that have a lot of wealth or have a lot of means. It won't necessarily be from Christians who have a lot of access to power. It may be that for structures that are more traditional than we're used to in the United States. But these voices will play an important part to us. Already, many of those countries are sending missionaries to Europe and to America. We have churches in the Presbyterian Church from Gambia, from the Congo, from Brazil, from Sudan, from Somalia, all over South Africa. Churches are being formed as part of our fellowships, and some of these churches are just churches that are direct links back to denominations in their country. And we need to learn from them. Many of these countries have a respect and a use of elders that far exceeds what we expect elders to be. In many places in Africa, you'll have one minister who may have a dozen or 2 dozen elders working with him, and it will be primarily him, who are serving congregations that were a large, wide area. This is how they grow their church. One of the largest churches, Presbyterian churches in the world is the Presbyterian Church of Eastern Africa, and this is primarily done through their elders showing leadership. That could be a challenge to us, and also some lessons for us as we seek to serve and grow our church. In other parts of the country, we learned that the elders took responsibility for much more of the church than we typically do in our own culture. Elders, I heard a story of one church where the elders come, they're there at 6 o'clock on Sunday morning to get the whole church ready. They do everything that's needed to make church happen for that particular congregation. They are part of they are acting, working elders in that church, not just decision makers meeting monthly in a session meeting. So the global South will I think, have a continue to have a growing influence on us, what we can learn from them, what we can learn from their struggles. Many of them are growing churches in regimes that are increasingly intolerant or hostile. There are places where the church is much more engaged with the Muslim world than we are here. We can learn from them. There are churches where often what the family structure sometimes is different, and we can learn from that. There are churches where the education level may not be as high as ours, and yet they have full and vibrant knowledge of the Bible and what it has to teach us. These are churches that are all can be very important to us. A few years ago, my presbytery back in Tennessee hosted a young woman associate pastor from a church in Africa. And we took her around showing off our churches, the largest which had 1,000 members, and showing her all of our, what we thought was really impressive things. Only to find out that she was the associate pastor of a 10,000 member church back in her country, which was bigger than our actual presbytery was at the time. So some of our assumptions need to drop as we talk about the global South, but we also need to kind of open our hearts and open our minds to hear what they may have to say to us about how to be church in a world with not always as supportive as Christendom has been in America in the past, but a church that still has managed to find a way to grow despite all kinds of obstacles. So let's keep this conversation going. I look forward to talking to you again. Thanks.